Well, is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Or is it dinner? Wherever you may be, welcome to the Drinks and Dave Show. I'm Dave.
And I'm Dave. How's it going, Dave?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
All right. You had the day off. Are you
Yeah.
relaxed, or are you worn out from errands?
I'm worn out. I'm worn out from the day off.
Are you? I mean,
Yeah,
some
I'm worn.
people are, right?
Yeah, Where is that coming from? Yes, Lord.
Please donate your
Oops.
$5. Save the days.
Yes.
All right. So we'll get this thing down. We'll figure it out.
Well, I'm not seeing anybody yet.
No, we got 4 people. We got 4 people watching.
How come I'm not seeing in the chat?
Well, they're not talking. They're
Oh, we have. Where are you seeing the people at?
Look at the top of your screen. There's an eye. There's an eye.
Hello, eyeballs. So welcome to the bar, Barflies. We certainly appreciate you being here. And I'm Dave.
We went through that.
We did already. Okay. Well, I guess I've been drinking too. Well, let's go there. What are you drinking tonight?
So I'm going to open something brand new. I haven't even opened the thing. Let's see if we can see this.
Ooh, Tamore Beastie.
Beastie. Yeah, it says it's a Highland blended malt Scotch whiskey. Look at 24 years old.
Oh, that sounds yummy.
Yeah, one of 830 bottles. So we're going to pop this baby open right now and try it for the first time. How did you? Are you into aged Scotch, or does it not matter to you much?
Yeah, no, I like it. Ooh.
Yeah, I kind of think 10 years at least. I kind of like it. It gets pricey, but the 18 on up, I just bought. We got somebody already talking shaving stuff here. What is it? King Charles III.
Coronation show. Oh, we couldn't get those here. But you need a British soap and aftershave to use with it. Wow. That brings up a whole bunch of stuff. You could use Mitchell's Wool Fat, both the old and or the new. You could use, and my personal preference would be using Floris. Any of the Floris scents are wonderful. And then of course you have Penhaligon's, but they really don't make the soap anymore. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Rich has joined our chat.
Welcome, Rich.
Welcome, Rich. Yeah, and guys, join our chat. Ask the questions. So, are you You're not smoking anything tonight, though, are you, Dave?
I'm inside, buddy.
Okay, so today I am drinking Glenmorangie Tale of the Forest. Sure. This has got a very nice juniper note to it, and it's very, very good. It's better than the last time I remember it. It was a little sweet before. And then for my cigar tonight, this is a brand new one by Rocky Patel. It's called the DBS, and basically it's a double broadleaf filler, Pennsylvania filler and a Nicaraguan filler, and then it has a double broadleaf San Andreas wrapper. So it's very, very nice, spicy, very spicy.
A whole lot of stuff crammed into one package.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is they're advertising blending of different flavors, obviously, but I know one other thing they advertise. What do they call it when everything's from one country? A Puro, right?
Puro. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that you get both, and they're claiming obviously both are good. So did we? Let's see, Floris, Santel, Macallan. There you go, buddy.
I am. In fact, I shaved with Elite today. It's absolutely fantastic. And if you actually take the old British Sterling and compare it to the Elite, a lot of the same notes are shared. Lots of the same note. So
out of his choices, that's what you would pick, Elite?
No, number 89 will always be my favorite. Now, not because purportedly James Bond used number 89, which is not true, but Ian Fleming did, and he loved it. And so that's a great British soap. I really like it. Whatever you do, stay away from Eucharist. Eucharist, actually, you could get Dawn dishwashing liquid to lather better than that.
You know what bums me out? Because you mentioned Penhaligon's doesn't really make the
Mm-hmm.
soap anymore, and that
Right.
I wish like obviously they don't sell as much, and there's a reason for that, but I
Well,
wish.
you know my feeling
Yeah,
on Penhaligons.
they they passed you by.
Yeah,
They passed you
exactly.
by.
So, guys, if you are in our chat, please say hi so we know who you are. Uh, we've got Rich, we've got P Beat, and there's 5 others that need to say hello. So please do so, and join us uh, in a drink.
So I'm looking.
And
I came. I was at work today, and I came home in a tie, and I was going to leave the tie on until my wife said it didn't match the shirt. I was going to show you up because I figured I did the last show in my underwear. This show I would do in a shirt and tie.
see, I dress down, but since it's barbering, I put my hombre's barbershop T-shirt on.
And, but now I'm seeing this, I feel like I'm missing a gold chain.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have my crucifix and my. That's about it. So flybys. It's bar flies there, Tiglily. Have another drink. So P Beat is asking, isn't check and speak worse than Trumper's Eucharist? I would say, as far as the soap, a big fat no. As far as the fragrance, I like Eucharist, and I know Eucharist has been accused of smelling like a person that was wearing tobacco and the vegetal got put into a coffin. But no, it's the older scents were flowery for a reason. Because back in the day, as you know, there wasn't water relatively available. So instead of being able to go and take a shower and smell all pretty, these guys put on these very floral fragrances. So
wouldn't that show that we've moved on from that and we need to stop wearing those things now that we can all bathe ourselves?
But it's traditional. It's tradition. It's tradition.
Yeah, I'm not all right. Right, but so is not washing. So
yes, as Rich says, it's BO camouflage. Hey, that would be a good shirt, I think. Dave,
or the name of an aftershave.
That would be great. Hey, Nurse Dave's dad, Steve's here. Thank you for joining us, Steve. And please ask questions that are going to embarrass your son.
Oh my gosh, Pop's birthday was yesterday.
Oh, well, should we sing happy birthday to him?
No, not
okay.
Even
all right. Okay. Well, I'm going to say happy birthday. So there.
There you go. So this show is supposed to be about barbering, and the reason was, for those of you that didn't watch my YouTube episode, is I hate going to the barber. I don't know why. And I did the supercuts thing for a long time, just because I didn't care. It was fast. The faster they were, the more I tipped and all this stuff. But long story short, I cut them loose. I cut them loose last week. And so then this weekend, I went to a real barber for the first time. And I don't know if I have even been to a true barber before. I'm sure I think I was. For some reason, I have a vague recollection of when I was young and went with my grandfather or something. But that triggered this, is like, let's talk with our favorite barber. And we'll start with the differences between what did you call it? The supercuts?
The weed whacking shop or something to that effect.
Weed whackers and true barbering, because to somebody who knows nothing about it, and I've heard you, so I know some.
Sure.
But it's cutting hair. You're just making hair shorter, right?
Okay.
So what's the difference?
Right. Well, let's first of all, let's say hi to Brian. Brian, welcome. And you just finished shaving with your Carb Overlander. That is awesome. So let's start in the beginning. Basically, there are only 2 types of people that actually cut hair. You've got barbers. Well, you've got barber, and there's different classifications. So you have barbers and you have cosmetologists. Now, cosmetologists are traditionally, and I say this, traditionally female, and they specialize a lot of stuff in shears, and they do color and nails and permanence and stuff like that. Barbers are trained to do all of those, but we don't. Now, within the barbering community, or we should say the hair servicing community, you've got, like I said, the cosmetologist, and you have the barber, which has a secondary designation, which is called a master barber. Now, a master barber goes through a little bit of additional training, and we do a couple of different things. The main difference is cosmetologists previously were not trained on how to shave with a straight razor. In other words, shaving their clients. Now that is changing, but there's no cosmetology school that teaches that. So usually, excuse me, they go to a barber and they learn how to shave with a straight razor. But those are the only two designations. So if you go to a salon like Fluffy Duck's, high-end salon, and Serge comes out, and Serge comes out and goes, "Hello, I am a master stylist." The problem with that,
wrong.
there is no such animal as a master stylist. Now, what has happened in the past is people that go to secondary schools, like in my case, Roffler, and that's how I became a distributor for Roffler men's care products, or Vidal Sassoon, or these type of secondary academies, they claim that makes them a Vidal Sassoon stylist. That's marketing. And because a lot of people will say, "Oh, I go to a stylist." The licensure for both barbering and cosmetology are reasonably the same. We have a certain number of hours, and that depends on the state. But in my case, mine was 3 years, and the first year is all on anatomy and physiology. The whole thing. It's just like.
Head?
Well, no, the whole body, because remember, everything that comes from the top of your head, your follicle, everything releases that way, the toxins and everything else. And how you cut hair and what you do to somebody's skin can affect them systemically. So, yeah, there's a ton of A&P. In fact, part of the national or the state board exams have a lot to do with that. And Major Rich brings up a very good point. Before there was cosmetologists in barbers were actually barber physicians.
Right.
We actually
cut somebody's arm off.
Oh yeah, we did surgery, we did dentistry.
Too bad that's ended, really.
Well, actually, you can thank the AMA for that, because the doctors were saying, "Wait a minute, these guys are hair cutters and they're chopping off people's arms, taking out things, and bloodletting." But if you look at the barber pole, and that's another thing, only barbers are allowed to legally fly the barber pole. A cosmetologist can't, and the reason being is those three colors mean one thing: the white means bandages, the red means blood for bloodletting, and the blue was arterial flow coming back. And so,
blue. Wait,
yeah,
the stripes are red and white.
No, red, white, and blue.
Are they?
Yep. But originally, you were right. Originally, they were red and white only. But then that got separated out. But barbering goes back to before Egyptian times. And that's why your best dressed pharaoh looked really good when he was telling Moses to go away. But that's another story. But getting to your first question about the difference between a supercuts and let's say supercuts, quick cuts, sport clips, those are franchised haircutting salons. Right. Most of the time, they do not employ barbers. They employ cosmetologists that just got out of school. They pay very, very little. Usually it's $10 to $12 an hour, and they make their money on tips. However, they have systems of cutting hair. Now, what we do is, myself as a master barber, we make a joke. And don't get me wrong, some of the cosmetologists that work at these locations are very good. Don't get me wrong. But we have a standard in barbering that says we fix supercut haircuts. And the reason being is because if you go into a supercuts, and let's say you want a gentleman's cut, and we can get into that later as to what a true gentleman's cut is.
We only have 3 hours, Dave.
Exactly. So, but what they do is they'll look at you and say, "What would you like?" And you say, "Oh, a little bit here, cut the hair." They will take a clipper, put it on 4, and go, wink, and that's it. And then they'll try to blend the top. Now, I gave you a hard time the other day about your haircut. Now, yeah. I know that you went to
So I went to a barber.
Uh-huh.
He had the pole outside, and it was cool. It's a typical barber shop, right? With photos all over the wall, just crap all over the place, like you would think it would be. And I told him that what I normally ask for: 3 on the side, scissor top, do whatever you want. But he was fast, but he did scissors, but instead of they run the fingers up and then he used a comb and
Yeah, it's
just
called
kept
clip.
running up and
Yeah, it's called
and
clipper
then
overcomb. It's called clipper overcomb.
after all that, he got up because I saw that he did shaves on his price guide, and I asked what
Hmm.
razors he used, and he uses a shavette with a
Right, right. Because
replaceable blade.
California, yeah, California doesn't allow straight razors.
Yeah.
Real quick before I finish with that, let me PB asks, how come barbers will not do scissor cuts? If you come across a barber that will not do a scissor cut, find another barber, because barbers are trained to do scissor cuts. What has happened, because of the type of haircuts there are, such as a fade. A fade is mostly 90% clippers with a little bit of shears. Fades are quick, they're fast, and they make money. That's the reason why you won't find a barber that does shear cuts. And scissor cuts are the best. That's when you know you've got a skilled barber, is if they don't use clippers. So let's go back real quick, Dave, to the gentleman's haircut. Traditionally, a gentleman's haircut is a shear cut around the ears, or a 1.5, which is a certain size of clipper, and then you blend that up with shears, and then of course you cut the length and everything else. So when I was giving you a crap about him, is the taper that you have. In other words,
Yeah.
a lot of times shears will not give you the taper you want, because you want it to be somewhat a V. You don't want to end up having it real short over the ears and then have it just kind of go out a little bit. Now, most people would not notice that. A barber notices it immediately. You want it to taper nice and easy up. So the problem is with barbering today is the traditional old-fashioned barbering um, is not as prevalent, because barbers want to get you in the chair and out of the chair, charge you $50, and go on to the next one. The philosophy of the old time barbershop is it didn't really matter how long you took in a chair, as long as you got a perfect cut. So in a gentleman's cut, it's a 1.5. I mean, I'll just go through the process real quick. It's a 1.5 around the sides and in the back. Then you you wet the hair, and then you cut a very sharp line around the ears, around the back, and everything else. And then you take shears and you do shear over comb. And that's what he was doing. He takes a comb, he lifts up on the hair. And what he's looking for is he's looking for inconsistencies in the hair. Now, as he's rolling that comb up, he's actually rolling out. So that's what gives you that taper. And then you cut the top in sections. Everything is sections. So you cut the top in sections, and then you go back, and you could use blending shears. I don't use blending shears that often, because to me, you should be able to blend it without. And then you go in and you take a number 1, and then you really taper that bottom. Now, some people will want either a rounded in the back, or square in the back, which is called blocked. And do they want it tapered, or do they not want it tapered?
Which one's right, Dave? Square or round?
It depends on the head. It actually depends on the shape of your head. If you've got a round head, you do not want a rounded back, because it makes it look like you're wearing a helmet. And so you would want a taper. You can still round taper it, but you'd still want a taper, and taper basically means it goes from nothing to something. And
So since I told him to do a 3 on the sides, did
Mhm.
I override what he should have been doing with that, or he should have just
Mm,
done the right thing
no,
anyway?
and I'm glad you asked that, because traditionally you have a couple of different things. You've got the top of the head, or the apex, and then you've got the crown. Now the crown is, if you feel in the back of your head right now, you're going to feel your occipital notch. Okay,
Yep.
and obviously you being a nurse, you know that. That is the crown. So traditionally, what you do is you take a 3.5 up to that level all the way around. But where I think he made the mistake is from that 3.5, then you go to a 2, 1.5, 1. So that way the clipper has blended all that, and then you take the shears and blend it, and then on the top you section the middle and the 2 sides. So if you say a 3 on the sides, traditionally what barbers will do is say, okay, he wants a 3 on the sides, which means he wants to leave some length over the ears. But most customers don't realize that part of that 3 on the sides is tapering it down to a low level, to where it looks even throughout the hair. And then on the top, if they want a shear cut, some people call scissors that, but they're actually shears. You can get a finger cut, which means that you're pulling up on the hair where your fingers rest on the your fingers rest on the actual scalp, and that's a finger cut. And what you do is you section, let's say you section the hair in the middle, and I comb up and I look and I say, okay, how much, and before I've done I've done a consultation, and I've said, how much do you want to take off? So I'll come up to that elbow, and this is my guide, and I will cut, but leave a little bit because that's my guide going back, and then I make 4 cuts going back. So I'll comb, cut, and that means that center section is even. Now, if you part your hair somewhat like you do, then on this side, we're kind of reversed, but on your left side, if you part on the left side, I do the same thing going back, but I over direct. And what that means is I take my hand and I pull the hair over, because that'll make it shorter where I'm cutting, but it'll be longer, so it'll comb back.
Got it.
So that's, it's there is a system, but what's happened is barbers have become lazy, and they do clippers, because clippers are fast. Bap, 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 you're gone,
So first, let me say it's Drinks and Dave's. So if you have them, put in the chat what you're sipping along with us, if it's water or whatever. But let me say, after I went and got the cut, you said, well, he did this, and then he did the razor cleanup and this and that. I didn't tell you any of that. So he did, after the cut, he got his little machine of warm stuff and put it all over, and then got the blade out. I didn't know he was going to do that, but he cleaned up all over in the neck with the blade, which was pretty cool. So is that standard then? If you're a barber, official barber, that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. In fact, that's something that they train specifically. Is that's what you do. Is you take the hot lather and you put it at the base of the you take it at the base of the sideburn, wherever that may be, all around the ears, and then down the back, or what we call the V, to the base, and then you shave down just to the top of the spine usually. And then you apply, aftershave, and then powder and stuff like that. Because the aftershave is actually, the aftershave is important because it's an antiseptic, because you are,
So I've never had the back of my neck shaved with a razor, and boy, that lit me up a little bit. But I'm glad he did that, because I think if he didn't do that, it would have been sore the next day probably.
Well, yeah, and it depends on the client. Some clients are very sensitive to alcohol-based aftershaves. So what I do is I keep a balm, an aftershave, and a witch hazel, and it just depends. And I've gotten to know my clients, so I know which one to use on them. And I do the same thing as it transports over to straight razor shaving. Now in Arizona, we're allowed to use regular straight razors. So
I'd take all 3.
And that's fine. And that's fine too. I mean, and that's one thing that a traditional old-time barber, and P-Beat had mentioned about an Italian barber. My instructor, and who later became a good friend, he was an Italian trained barber, and that is something that if you go to Italy, that's just the norm, and that's the way, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. But again, as I was saying earlier, the type of styles of haircuts that are around now are fades, and if you really want to get a good barber, ask him to do a fade with scissors. That is when you got a good barber, because he can go from nothing to a full head of hair just using a comb and shears. Wow. It takes a long time, but
so let's take a step back.
Okay.
Because you've had many careers, and we'll probably talk about some of them down the road, but this is at least career number 4 for you. Yeah?
3. No, 4. You're right.
No.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. 4.
So when did you first think that this is something you'd want to do?
When I was probably 7. My dad went to one specific barber, and a quick story, and I don't know if I've told you this, but we went to a place called the Mug, and the barber's name was Jerry Druitt, and the mug was like a shaving mug, and he had the big wall full of every client had their own shaving mug with their name or their occupation, and a shaving brush for sterility purposes. And I'm kind of doing the same thing, but Jerry gave me my first haircut, and he cut my hair until I went into the military, and he cut my dad's hair the entire time I can remember. And I used to remember the smells, the barbicide, the other liquids, the shampoos, And back then in the 70s, everybody's wearing those silk shirts and Salvador Montoya was my first barber, and really cool guy. And they wore the platform shoes. It was basically looked like Link from Room 222 for those people that are old enough to remember that. But I remember the conversations, and I remembered how it was like, hey, this is a guy's place. These where guys can talk about their wives. They can fart, they can spit, they can, at that time they could smoke cigarettes in there, and they unloaded their week onto the barber, and the barber knew that it was confidential, and he would just be a counselor. And so right then set the seed. But then you go forward, you do your career. But I was always interested in barbering, and that's what kind of led me to the shaving cadre and in the old place. It was always something that I wanted to do. So after my career and after I sold my insurance agency and I got bored real fast, I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to become a barber. And of course, once she determined that I wasn't having a stroke, she goes, okay. And she was very supportive. And all in all, if I had to go back and erase all those other careers and just be a barber, I would. There's no stress. You get to meet people from all walks of life, and they confide in you things that they wouldn't even confide to their wives. And it's that trust, it's that family. And it's neat when you do the hair, and too bad Chad's not here, but you do the hair of somebody's dad, then you do the son, then you do his son, and then you do the other son. That's what's pretty cool. And actually, what P Beat says is very true. A lot of times people before there was official barbering schools, a lot of people that wanted to get into barbering would go up to the barber and say, "Hey, can I help?" And he'd say, "Yeah, sweep up all the hair." And then he'd take you on as a kind of like an apprentice and go from there.
So, Playboys in your shop, yes or no?
No.
No.
Well, and the thing is, because my shop is a fairly small shop, it's a single chair. But when the pandemic started, we went to appointment only. In other words, there was no walk-ins, and I've just actually stayed with that because it's just much, much easier. So no, because there's nobody sitting around waiting. Although we have a waiting room that people can hang out in, but it's usually it's by appointment only, and they come in right at
So when you quit your career before this, you didn't quit planning on doing it. You just decided. Mm-hmm. I mean, that at that point, that was the end. I'm just going to retire, and then you need
pretty much. I mean, there was another backstory behind that. One of a gentleman that was a mortgage broker that had his office right across from mine had this dream about opening up a barbershop, and we started talking, and I told him I'd help out. So did I exit the insurance business early? Yeah, I did, because there was an opportunity to start a really, really nice big time barbershop from ground up. So I was a consultant, showed the barbers how to shave and all that other stuff. And I wasn't even in barber school yet. And so I was helping with that, and that's the cadre was already around and everything. Actually, it was the other place, but then I started thinking, wow, this is cool. And then the guy that started the barbershop turned out to be a complete flake, and all the promises that he made went south. So then that's what kind of led me to where I'm at now.
So I'm looking at our backgrounds, and I'm thinking, can you combine a cigar lounge and a barbershop?
Yes. In fact, it's already been done. In fact, there's it's called, I think it's called Bourbon and Cuts. It's a franchise that's based out of Denver, Colorado. And when you walk in, and that may not be the right name, but that's the onus behind it, is you walk in the front part, and it's a cigar lounge and a bar and everything else. And then behind that is the barbershop. And so a lot of guys will stop, get a drink, walk back to the barbershop. And it's a pretty neat thing. But, somebody franchised it and everything else. I mean, believe it or not, if you remember Mayberry RFD or the Andy Griffith Show, Floyd's Barbershop, that is actually now a franchise that has been, the name is now protected under patent. So the only way you could open up a shop called Floyd's Barbershop is if you are part of that franchise group now. So.
Well, I get my hair cut every week, I think.
Well, it's funny, because obviously part of barbering is obviously the shaving, and that's my true passion, is the straight razor shave, and we can get into that if you want. But the a lot of the older gentlemen, and I guess I should say to the viewers that my shop is located in what's called Saddlebrook Ranch, which is a active adult community that's like a resort basically. It's got everything.
Active as
And
opposed to cemetery is what he meant.
exactly. And so so I've had guys that are in their 50s and 60s and 70s that have never had a straight razor shave. And on the converse side of that, I've got people that grew up in New York City that were advertising guys. And what they would do is they'd go out on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night and get blotto, and then they would have an advertising meeting at 8:30 in the morning. So what they did, what they did is they would go into the barber shop at 8 o'clock in the morning to get a shave and get their hair, full of Burl cream or pomade, and that way they could go up to their office and be the Don Draper, of the advertising. So in New York and Chicago and Detroit, a lot of your major high rises on the low level, even at the lowest level where the subways were, there would be a barbershop, because these guys would get off the train, run to the barbershop, get a quick cut and a shave, and boom, and they looked like, hey, they had just, they looked perfect, even though they were half, two sheets to the wind still. And so that, so I've got guys now that had never had a straight razor shave. And now I've got certain guys that come in every other day for a shave because they hate shaving. And they're starting to realize they appreciate that half hour or that hour or that hour and a half is theirs.
Well, you have standing appointments for people that come more than once a week?
Oh, absolutely. Uh-huh.
Dang.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's interesting. I mean, I wasn't thinking about the shaving, but that's an interesting thing, because it's one thing to get good at straight razor shaving yourself, but somebody else, you don't have any of that tactile feedback of the skin and the pressure, and it's all in your own hands, right?
Well, yes and no. Because what you learn is each individual person has a different what we call a follicular density, and the density of their whiskers. And believe it or not, that's why your fingers are so important, because you can actually feel the straight razor vibrate through the skin. And so when you're it takes usually one or two shaves before you get to know the guy's face, because the first thing you do is you map their beard, so you know how you're going to do your passes, just like we do. But the stretching is the key, but also the resistance. So you're holding the razor super light, and how much resistance you get also determines what type of blade I use. So if somebody's got a thick beard like yours, right, I would use a wedge, because a wedge is heavy. It'll cut right through stuff. And then other people, I'll use the Titleist, because I use one of those at work, which is it's a shavette, but I call it a removable blade straight. And so you learn their face, and you learn, because you're going to learn, okay, do I need to go this way for their width of grain? Because I do a 3-pass shave with all the hot towels and all that other good stuff that goes with it. So you do, it's tactile. You get to know their skin. You get to know how much elasticity there is in their skin. And a lot of that, believe it or not, has to do with, obviously an older population. Are they on certain medications? Medications do affect all that, because let's face it, as your hair pushes out, as you know, that's where all the waste products go. I mean, it goes
people,
out.
You have the skin stretch all the way over their foreheads.
I've got a few, yeah, that I've got sometimes I take vice grips and I pull them across. No, I'm kidding. I don't do that. But, but yeah, you do learn. And then, and everybody's, because you've got some guys that play pickleball and volleyball and tennis, and these guys are in better shape than I am. And they're, 75 years old, and their skin is very taut. It's very easy. You've got guys with goatees, and then you've got the gentlemen that are, like I've got a gentleman that's 91, and he's enjoyed his life. I'll put it that way. But yeah, when I stretch, like if I'm stretching from here, literally I'm up here before I let the blade hit the skin, and that's just, you just get used to it,
Yeah.
And,
so Rich made a joke here about, Dave's head shop and barbering, but you did have your own line of shave soap, Ombre soap, which smells amazing. But you made a mention one time that that was a limited run. You're not
Hmm.
going to keep that go, which surprised me. So what are
Well,
your? Are you
it's
going to
not.
stay?
Oh no, we still have the product. I mean, I've got a little bit left in the shop, but it was for those of you who don't know, Chris Lindsay, CBL Soaps, and you can find him at cblsoaps.com. We talked and talked and talked and came up with what we wanted to do for a southwestern smell, and that was a limited run of 50. But we're moving on. We're actually, through feedback from my clients and from people in the cadre and people that have the soap, we're actually moving it to the next level. And I just put the order in today for another set of 50, and it's going to be called Hombres Dos Spaghetti Western. So what we've done is we've taken that initial fragrance, which has got sweet orange, jalapeno flower, terracotta, leather, gun smoke, gunpowder, and we're adding an Italian twist to it, and it's to make an homage to the spaghetti westerns that Clint Eastwood did. And so far, the preliminary reports that I've gotten from some people that I've sent it to test, they love it. And so it's going to have an Italian twist to it, but it's still going to be. I mean, you're going to think that you're going to see Sergio Leone or Clint Eastwood ride over a hill.
Yeah. So
That's
you
kind of
want
the
to
feeling.
stay? You want to keep a shop soap, but it's not going to be a main focus where you're going to have multiple lines and keep them in stock after they go out.
No, actually, since I'm a distributor for Roffler men's care products, that's the primary focus
Mm.
on my retail side. Although I do carry Parasso, I do carry Cella, I do carry Saponificio Veracino, and then the Hombres is just my own line.
Wait.
Um,
So before we get to this next question,
mhm.
what soap do you use on your clients?
It depends because I've got different levels of shaves. If they're coming in to get the basic shave, which is relatively inexpensive.
Ivory soap, right?
No, I've got a hot
Mhm.
lather machine. I mean, one of the traditional old Lather King lather machines,
Mhm.
and the concentrate that comes from King Lather is a tallow based cream, and it mixes with distilled water. And I've got some menthol I put in it too, and then it heats up, and it's meant specifically for a hot lather machine. So it's every bit as good as some of the shaving soaps. Now, my secondary shave, which is what we call, well, I've got three levels. I've got the basic shave, the premium shave, and then the elite shave. And the premium shave, usually I will use whether it be Parasso or whether it be Cella or whether it be Hombres, and that's applied with a brush, and then everything else. And then the elite is always done with a because the basic shave is usually done with the Tedless, with the Essence by Tedless. The premium is done with their choice, either a straight razor or the Tedless, and then the Elite shave, which includes all the EDTs and all this other stuff that goes along with it. That is specifically high end products or hombres. So they have their choice.
Got it. Take a shot at that question, Dave.
Okay, let me read it. PB is asking, are there days when you are stressed and you won't do a straight shave on someone? No, because there really isn't any stress, honestly. The only stress that I have in my shop is when somebody no shows, because traditionally I'm usually booked out 3 months. So if somebody no shows, it screws up my entire day. But no, because you get in a zone. You get in a zone and you just do the thing. And I love shaving so much that that is my treat, because what I do, depending on the client, they come in. If they want to watch, I usually turn the sound on the TV down because you don't want them turning their head while you've got a blade to their neck. So usually what I'll do is I'll ask them what type of music they like, and I'll put that on. And if a client falls asleep in the chair while I'm shaving, then I've done exactly what I want to do. Um, so no, the answer to that question, no, I don't get stressed at the shop at all, at all.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So I think we're rolling towards the end. Let anybody put in more questions in the chat if you have them. So what's the future? How long are you going to do this for, Dave?
Well, the one thing, what people don't realize about it, believe it or not, it is a very physical job, because you're on your feet 12, 13, 14 hours a day. Plus, you're up. you have to have the correct posture when you're cutting and when you're shaving. So at the end of the day, and you can ask somebody you already know that I'm beat, and that's why my shop's only open 4 days a week, but it's open from 8 o'clock, and my last appointment could be 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I jam everything in, and then it usually takes me 2 or 3 days to recover. But I will do it as long as I still enjoy it. In other words, when I get up in the morning and I'm excited to get to the shop, then I'll just keep going, because the beauty of this is no matter where we end up going, if we don't stay here, if we go somewhere else, I can always open up another shop. But if I was to pick a number, I would probably say once I hit 62 and I can get Social Security and along with my other retirement, that'll probably be when I start slowing down a little bit. I don't know if I'll ever give it up, because I really do. I love it. I really do.
Yeah.
I really love it.
Is there anything else that would just surprise people about being a barber?
Well, like any other business, you've got the cost of goods, and those are going up. Now, you and I talked about, how much you paid for your haircut now, and I charge for my basic gentleman's haircut is $20, and almost everybody tells me, Jesus, David, come on, raise your prices, because you go to Vegas, you go to pretty much anywhere now, and it's $35 or higher. But for me, it's not about, it's going to sound weird, it's not about the money. It's about keeping the tradition of an old style barbershop alive, and what I call retention. So if I've got 90% of the people coming back 99% of the time, then it's all a matter of numbers, and it gives me a very comfortable lifestyle. I get to have 3 days a week off. But some of the things that would surprise people is what we go through before and after the day starts. So just to give you an idea, I'm usually up between 4:30 and 5 in the morning, get to the shop 6:45-ish to 7 o'clock, prepare all my towels for the day, meaning rolling the towels, wetting the towels, sticking them in the hot towel warmer, getting the refrigerator ready for the cold towels, replacing the barbicide. I replace it once every 3 days, making sure your combs are washed. Believe it or not, there's a solution called that's made by Barbicide specifically for washing combs. You sterilize the shop, meaning Lysol, wipe everything down, and obviously since the pandemic, it's been even more intense. So and then that starts the day. And I've been accused of being very anal retentive. I want everything in the right place, so I can just it's almost like, it sounds funny, but it's almost like being a conductor. You want to be able to, I've got everything set up a specific way, and I know what I need for each client. So I'll review my clients for the day. And I'll say, okay, I know what I need to do with him. I know how he acts. I know if he's a jerk. I know if he's a great guy. So I know these people, and then go through the day. And at the end of the day, then you reverse the process. So you're taking the towels out, you're cleaning out, you're cleaning your hot towel warmer, you're cleaning your hot lather machine and refilling it. You're cleaning your brushes, because your hair brushes, because in one haircut, I use probably 4 different styles of comb, because you've got a regular comb, you've got a taper comb, you've got a larger comb for doing like what he did, the clipper over, or the shear over comb. And then you've got brushes. So you've got bore brushes, you've got big vent flow brushes for the people that have the big hair, and then you've got the pomades, and so there's a lot of cleaning. So usually at least an hour before the shop, or my first appointment, and at least an hour after the shop. So that turns out to be about a 15, 16-hour day by the time you're done. Yeah. And so that would be surprising to some. I think the other big surprise is when people ask the level of education they have to go through, because it's about 3 years before you.
I would have guessed 6 months, or
maybe. And it depends. It also depends. It also depends on the state, because each state has a certain number of hours. As you know how that works, you have a certain number of hours that you have to go through, and then you take the state board exams, and then there's always other things that you can go to find out different techniques and different products and stuff like that. So it can be different. But is there anybody else we've got 7 people. Anybody else have any other questions before we wrap this up?
Yeah. And while we'll wait for maybe some final questions, I'll point out, got our email address down there on the bottom. We mentioned last time, I think we will every time, that we're just looking for interesting hobbies, folks with interesting jobs. So if you know somebody or you've got a hobby that you think you'd like to discuss with us, even if it's not unusual, we're going to start having guests on from time to time. Shoot us an email. And then the other thing is join our other YouTube channel. That the hope is right now it's streaming on both of our shaving channels, and we want to get away from that. We're going to keep our shaving channels, but we
Right.
want Drinks and Daves to stand alone. So we need to get up to 100 subscribers there so we can stream live on that channel.
Yeah, so please tell your friends, those people that are part of Dave's channel already and my channel already. If you got anybody, because we're not just going to do barbering or shaving. This is going to be, we're kind of doing that in the beginning just because the next show we have is probably going to be about Dave. We're going to ask about nursing, how he got into nursing, what did he do, what he does now, and that'll be good. But real quick, Tig Lily came out. I had a stylist say once that the strongest hair they cut was Irish hair because it was growing out in all directions. Is that true?
Strangest hair.
Actually, that's true. Different ethnicities have different different hair, and the hair density and the elasticity of the hair is different. I would say probably the two people that have the hardest hair to cut is somebody that's gone totally gray, which is what's in the industry it's called Canashese. It's not spelled that way, but that's the way you pronounce it. Because what happens is as you lose the melanin in the cuticle of the hair becomes thicker, and it also becomes less elastic. So it's like cutting a copper wire. In fact, I get my shears sharpened about once a month. And so, hello, Enabled Shaver, how are you? And so that is one. But as far as ethnicities on which hair is the hardest to cut, Irish is tough because inside, in your hair, you've got, yes, gingers. You've got follicles that don't want to, just like on your face, you've got follicles that grow in weird ways. Now, what we call that on the head is cowlicks. And so you'll have a cowlick in the back. And what happens in most cases is barbers and cosmetologists, if they don't know how to deal with a cowlick, it sounds counterproductive. But when you see somebody with a cowlick in the back, do not cut that hair, because what happens is when you cut it, it's going to go straight out and you're going to have a rooster tail. But people have cowlicks everywhere. And I've got a guy that's got a cowlick right here, which means that no matter how I cut it, it's going to cut. So he's opted to go to a buzz cut because it looks even. And that's just unfortunately a genetic thing that happens. But the other hair that is the hardest to cut because it's hard to blend is Asian, because it is so specifically straight that when you are using shears and you cut it, you've got a line and you've got to blend that line out. And it's very, very tough to blend that line out. And PB is asking, do you believe in vitamins or supplements? Yes. There's one. I would argue that the stuff
Dave's
that you see
medical
marketed
reviews are not reflective of Dave. Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. I do not believe necessarily, although I guess the evidence shows that the whole thing with Rogaine and this men's hair care, Nuka, whatever it's called, the best thing I can suggest as a natural supplement for hair is biotin. It can be found in any health food store. It's a supplement, and it's for hair and nails. That'll keep your hair healthy. Also, here's something that people would be surprised about. Do not condition your hair every single day. Do not do that. The reason why you see people say, oh, buy our shampoo and buy our conditioner, because they want to sell you shampoo and conditioner. You don't need to condition your hair because, and everybody that knows me from the cadre knows that I'm going to say this word, your sebaceous glands, they produce an oil which is a conditioner. So you do not need to wash or to condition your hair every day. Depending on what kind of job you have, you may only have to condition your hair once a week. Also, you don't necessarily have to wash your hair every single day, because if you find a shampoo that's got a lot of sulfates in it, it's just like the clothes in your washing machine. That will strip moisture out of your hair. And I think everybody has gone through, it's like, wow, my hair feels really dry. Those are things that that you want to be very cognizant of to have your hair in good shape. Most men Like I get this comment all the time. How would you like the back? I don't care. I don't look at the back. But the simple fact of the matter is, and nobody will admit it, our wives own our hair. And believe me, when you come back from a haircut, they are looking at your hair, and they will tell you if your hair is either too short or too long. Finally, since the pandemic, short haircuts were the thing. Boom, boom, boom. But since the pandemic, when people weren't going to barbershops, now the wives are saying, wait a minute, honey, I kind of like the way your hair looks long. And so you're seeing a lot more long, and including the haircut that I think is the worst haircut on the planet, but it is a huge haircut that is now popular, and that is the mullet. It's back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, would it surprise you? This is all natural, Dave. I never condition. This is all me.
Yeah. What happened to you? You disappeared from it. No, I mean, the thing is, shorter haircuts require less maintenance. I mean, they do. That's the bottom line. They require less maintenance, and it's just a matter of taking. But if you can find a barber, do. Bow tie. He made it. Michael made it. And that's good. And the thing is, I can tell you, Michael, that that you get out, you get in the shower, you wipe it, you brush it, you're done. If even that much. Now, Dave and I wear our hair very similar. I mean, I'm actually growing it out now because a certain person has told me that they don't want me to have it short anymore. So I'm going to be growing it long, and maybe a pompadour even, a pompadour. So we'll see. Well, if it was up to her, she would. I would probably have a ponytail. So. Anyways.
Tell me that's not a trend in your retirement community, huh?
Actually, I've got a guy that
bald here and the ponytail in the back.
It does have it. It does have it.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I won't do it, Michael. I promise. Well, let's take one final. Oh, congratulations there, Michael. Just finished full 3 passes with a straight razor. Congratulations. That's obviously. And no, Rich, I will give you no. No.
Votes for Man Bun, you're outvoted. Last question. Answer this one, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay. What's the question? I'm in a different part of the screen.
What are your clippers of choice?
I use. See, you were thinking this was going to be a short answer. There are 3 different types of clippers I use. I use Oster, all cordless, because I'm left-handed, and nobody makes anything for left-handed people. So I use a cordless Oster with various blades. Then I use a Wall, what they call the seniors, which is a metal.
Old man. If he was buying one for home use,
Wall.
What would you recommend?
Wall. And buy it from a barber supply store. Do not buy it from a beauty supply store.
Really?
Buy it from a barber supply. Yeah, because the ones you get at beauty supply stores are usually, or Walmart or anything like that, are usually a little bit lesser quality. Go ahead. I mean, go ahead and spend the money, and it'll be the last thing you'll ever have to.
Get the 240 volt is what you're saying.
No, you don't need that. Get cordless. Mine are cordless. So.
All right, buddy.
All righty. Well, I think we're about done. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us at Drinks and Dave's. We will be putting out when our next episode will be, which may be sooner than later. And remember, we are going to be talking to Nurse Dave about nursing. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so much. Subscribe, come and see us, and we'll see you soon. Good. Take care.
Night, everybody.
Night.